Sarah Whitman stood in the middle of the crowded parking lot like any other shopper, but within seconds, her unexpected action would turn an ordinary afternoon into a viral moment of shock and outrage. The parking lot was filled with the usual afternoon noise of shopping carts rolling, car doors shutting, and distant announcements from inside the store. People moved with casual ease, focused on their own routines without a hint that anything unusual was approaching. A 7-year-old child walked a few steps ahead of their mother, gently clutching a small toy that had just been purchased. The warm sunlight reflected on rows of parked vehicles, creating a bright shimmer across the asphalt. Everything about the moment felt ordinary, the kind of scene that repeats itself every day in countless shopping centers. A few parking spaces away, a grown woman sat inside her car with the window halfway down. She had been there for several minutes, almost blending into the background like just another shopper preparing to leave. However, her movements were restless. Observers would later mention that she looked tense, tapping her fingers on the steering wheel and staring out toward the pedestrians passing by. At first, nobody paid attention to her, as nothing about her presence seemed alarming. She opened her door slowly, stepped out, and stood still for a brief moment as if trying to gather herself. The child continued walking, cheerful and unaware of the woman, now watching closely. Nearby shoppers pushed carts filled with groceries and spoke among themselves, not noticing the shift in atmosphere. The woman's steps were steady, but there was something unsettling about the way she moved. Her eyes remained fixed ahead, locked onto the small figure walking with carefree energy. The mother, focused on loading items into the back of her vehicle, did not look up in time to catch the approaching figure. The moment that followed happened so quickly that most people only registered it after it was already over. The woman reached the child with unexpected speed. There was no warning, no visible sign that an incident was about to unfold. In a sudden burst of motion, she struck the child in the face. The sound of shock came not from the strike itself, but from the gasps that echoed across the lot as bystanders froze in disbelief. The normal rhythm of the afternoon shattered instantly. Carts stopped rolling, footsteps halted, and every eye turned toward the scene that had just unfolded in the middle of an ordinary day. People who had been walking past only seconds earlier now stood completely still, trying to process what they had just seen. Some held shopping bags halfway between their car and the ground, frozen mid-step. Others instinctively looked around, expecting someone else to react first. Shock created a moment of silence before confusion and concern swept through the crowd. A few individuals took cautious steps forward, unsure if approaching would make the situation worse. The woman responsible for the sudden act remained in place, her expression unreadable, neither panicked nor afraid. Her stillness only added to the tension, as if she did not fully grasp the weight of what had just happened. Several witnesses pulled out their phones, not only to record the incident, but also to call for help. The mix of fear and disbelief caused some to fumble with their devices, their hands trembling as they tried to reach emergency services. Others looked toward the store entrance, expecting security or employees to appear. A security guard stationed near the entrance noticed the commotion and began moving quickly through the crowd, signaling for backup through his radio. As he approached, it was clear that the situation was escalating beyond a simple confrontation. The child, startled and trying to make sense of the attack, held onto their mother tightly. Even though no severe physical harm was immediately visible, the emotional impact was clear. The mother appeared shaken, trying to comfort the child while also keeping a watchful eye on the woman who remained only a few steps away. Bystanders whispered among themselves, trying to understand the reason behind such a sudden and unprovoked action. Many recounted seeing the woman earlier, alone and pacing around her car like she was caught in deep frustration. The atmosphere in the parking lot shifted from peaceful to tense in a matter of moments. What had been just another shopping trip for dozens of people had now turned into an unfolding scene that nobody could ignore. Each witness held a slightly different version of what they saw, but they all agreed on one thing: there had been no provocation from the child. The security cameras overlooking the lot captured every second, silently recording the event that would soon be reviewed in detail. As sirens in the distance began to grow louder, the reality of the situation settled in. This was no misunderstanding or minor argument. Something more serious had just taken place, and everyone present sensed that this moment would not be forgotten easily. Police cars entered the parking lot with flashing lights, causing people to step back and clear a path. The officers moved quickly, separating the woman from the crowd to prevent any further escalation. They guided her to the side, keeping a safe distance while assessing whether she posed a continued threat. Witnesses gathered in small clusters, talking in hushed tones as officers began asking for statements. Some people replayed the footage on their phones, reviewing the incident to make sure they remembered it correctly. Others stood quietly, still unsettled by how suddenly the situation had unfolded. Store security staff retrieved the footage from multiple cameras that captured different angles of the scene. The video clearly showed the woman stepping out of her vehicle, walking in a focused manner, and approaching the child before striking without hesitation. Investigators studied the recording closely, noting how there were no signs of interaction or confrontation beforehand. The clarity of the footage eliminated any possibility of confusion or mistaken identity. Everything appeared deliberate and intentional, which raised more questions about the woman's state of mind. As the investigation began, officers tried to gather as much information as possible from the people who had witnessed the event firsthand. Some described the woman's movements as strange and detached, as if she was acting under pressure no one else could see. Others mentioned noticing her before the incident, pacing near her car with restless behavior. Every account added to the timeline being constructed by law enforcement. The child and their mother were taken aside to provide a safer environment away from the growing attention of onlookers. Paramedics conducted a quick check to ensure there were no hidden injuries. News of the incident began spreading almost instantly through social media as onlookers uploaded clips from their phones. Within minutes, the parking lot was no longer just a place of routine shopping. It had become the center of a viral event that captured widespread attention. People online reacted strongly, demanding answers and questioning how something so unexpected could happen in a public space. The footage was shared rapidly, and comments poured in from viewers who had never been there but felt a sense of shock just from watching. Authorities understood that the situation had grown beyond a local disturbance and now required careful handling to uncover the reason behind such a sudden act. As authorities continued their investigation, attention shifted toward understanding who the woman was and what could have led to such a sudden act of aggression. Records revealed that she had no immediate connection to the child or the family involved. This discovery removed any possibility of a personal dispute, turning the focus toward her background and recent behavior. Investigators began checking previous reports linked to her name and found several incidents where she had been involved in public disturbances. Although none of those incidents had escalated to physical harm, witnesses in those cases had described unpredictable behavior and sudden outbursts in public spaces. A review of her recent history showed a pattern of mounting stress. She had been unemployed for several months after leaving her previous job due to repeated conflicts with coworkers. Neighbors had also reported arguments outside her home late at night, claiming they often heard shouting even when no one else appeared to be present. These details raised concerns about her mental stability and whether she had received any form of support or assessment. It became clear that her behavior in the parking lot might not have been a random moment, but rather the result of issues that had built up over time without intervention. Investigators requested a psychological evaluation to determine if she was aware of her actions during the incident. Specialists were brought in to review her case, and they noted signs of emotional strain and possible detachment from reality. However, determining her exact state of mind at the time would require deeper analysis. As these findings surfaced, public opinion began to divide. Some people expressed sympathy, arguing that untreated mental health struggles can lead to unpredictable behavior. Others believed that no explanation could justify a violent act directed at a child, regardless of personal struggles. The growing public interest led to more pressure on authorities to release official updates. Community members voiced concern about safety in public spaces, questioning whether warning signs had been ignored. News outlets covered the story extensively, replaying the footage and interviewing witnesses who described what they saw. The woman's past, once unnoticed by most, was now under intense scrutiny. Each detail added a new layer to the unfolding story, creating a complex picture of a person whose actions shocked an entire community. The investigation, now deeper than a simple report of assault, began to uncover the long trail of warning signs that had gone unaddressed until it was too late. In the weeks that followed, the case moved into the courtroom, where the footage from the parking lot became a central piece of evidence. The clear recording left little room for dispute, and the woman was formally charged for her actions. Legal proceedings attracted significant media attention, with reporters stationed outside the courthouse and online viewers closely following every update. The community watched with a mix of anger and curiosity, wanting to see what consequences would be handed down. The woman's legal team requested that her mental evaluation be considered, claiming her actions were influenced by severe emotional instability. The court had to weigh public safety against the possibility that her behavior was linked to untreated mental health issues. Prosecutors argued that regardless of her condition, the act itself placed a child at risk and caused widespread fear. Supporters of strict accountability emphasized that random violence in public spaces cannot be excused, especially when directed toward minors. On the other hand, some observers believe the case highlighted a deeper issue about the lack of proper support systems for individuals showing signs of declining emotional control. The child's family chose not to make public appearances, preferring privacy over media involvement. They focused on recovery and returning to a sense of normal life. Community support for the family remained strong, with many people sending messages of empathy. The incident also led to increased awareness about safety in public areas, encouraging families to stay more alert, even in familiar environments. Discussions began in local circles about how to identify and report concerning behavior before it results in harm. When the final court decision was announced, it confirmed a legal penalty designed to protect the public and address the woman's state of mind through mandatory supervision and treatment. The outcome reflected a balance between justice and precaution, recognizing both the impact of the incident and the importance of preventing future occurrences. The parking lot where everything happened slowly returned to its usual routine, but for those who witnessed the event, the memory remained clear. What began as a normal day ended as a moment that reminded everyone how quickly a peaceful setting can change when underlying issues go unnoticed. The case served as a reminder that behind sudden actions, there can be deeper stories that remain hidden until they break into public view.